I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person.
Abraham Lee Shakespeare, who has the greatest name I've ever heard, just wanted a quiet life in his mansion with the millions he made in the lottery, but right when he started to get his life together, he mysteriously disappeared. And you won't believe what happened after that. Be sure to stick around to the end and see how insane it gets. This is one of the most absurd stories you've ever heard, and it might make you think twice about playing the lottery. Hi, my name is Jace, and this is Musical True Crime. Plant City, Florida is a small rural community known for its vast strawberry fields and orange groves. In fact, it is known as the winter strawberry capital of the world and hosts the annual Florida Strawberry Festival in late winter. It was named after railroad developer Henry B. Plant and features a tropical Gulf Coast climate, perfect for strawberries. What would you do if you won the lottery? Would you buy a house for your mom? Would you buy 25 bagels? Would you get a boob job? Some people have done pretty radical stuff. Bob Earp, for example, a massive pothead, used $1 billion to fund 420 Day. John Cutie built a water park, and Jonathan Vargas created a TV show with female wrestlers. Abraham Shakespeare, on the other hand, kept it fairly low-key. He bought a house in a gated neighborhood for a cool $1 million, a Nissan Altima, and picked up a Rolex watch at a pawn shop. Besides that, he gave away a lot until he started to downward spiral into poverty. But let's go back a few years. The 40-year-old Shakespeare, who was born on April 23, 1966, as the youngest of 4 children, was an illiterate and humble 6'5" truck driver for MBM Corporation. He had a rough beginning. His family was poor, and he was unable to make it past grade 7. He had learning difficulties too. Out of pure frustration, he quit school and chose to work with his dad in the citrus fields. He just couldn't stay out of trouble and was convicted for theft at the age of 13. He was then thrown in juvenile detention center until he was 18. As an adult, he worked menial jobs. He washed dishes and even worked as a garbage man. He had fathered a son named Moses with his ex named Antoinette Andrews, who, ironically, also won $1 million in the lottery in 2017, and he had a job as a food delivery driver. Abraham and another dude would drive around delivering packaged food, a gentle giant who was raised in an extremely poor family, who lived with and cared for his mother Elizabeth. He was kind and giving, without an unkind word for anybody. He had big dreams. He dreamed of living in a luxurious gated mansion and eating the finest foods. With his minimal education, he was unsure if it would ever happen, but he would hope and pray and play the lottery. His wish came true. Abraham and his co-worker, Michael Ford, were heading to Miami when they pulled over and stopped at the Town Star convenience store in Frostproof, Florida for drinks and smokes. Ford in his burly frame stepped out of the truck and asked Shakespeare if he wanted a tasty soda, maybe a cream soda or a root beer. But Shakespeare said, "No, I just want lottery tickets, buddy." And lo and behold, Abraham Shakespeare hit the jackpot, $30 million before tax. He was on cloud 9. This is when greed first enters our story. Mr. Ford claimed that he bought the tickets and Abraham paid him for one of them. Whereas Abraham claimed he paid for one and Michael bought the other one. Abraham had been planning on giving him $250,000. But Michael's greed got the better of him. He took Abraham to court. 5 co-workers claimed Michael had told them that Abraham paid for his ticket. So in the end, Abraham won and Michael ended up with nothing. When you win the lottery, you can either get the entire sum paid to you over time, or you can get a lump sum, in which case you get way less money. Abraham chose to take the lump sum of $17 million. He purchased a home in North Lakeland. It was a house he had dreamed of, 2 jacuzzis, 4-car garage, and a pool. A different Abraham Hicks, talks about visualizing what you want and manifesting your desires. This is a clear-cut case of Shakespeare doing exactly that. But unfortunately, there was a dark side to his fortune Abraham didn't know was heading towards. He invited his mom to live with him in his lap of luxury, but she wouldn't. She didn't like the house. She got bad vibes. She wasn't a big fan of all the money either. She thought it was the devil and a curse. She had no idea how right she was. Abraham was generous to a fault. Anybody who came to him in need, he'd provide for. He didn't have a financial advisor, so he just bled money. He suddenly had a bunch of new friends. But the sad irony is, he didn't know half of those people. These hangers-on knew he couldn't read or write and used him as their cash cow. He was the goose that laid the golden egg.
Oh, I got no hope, I got no hope. I'll be sleeping soundly. Oh, I got no hope, I got no hope. He's a sycophant. Oh, I got no hope, I got no hope. I'll be sleeping soundly. Oh, I got no hope, I got no hope.
Shakespeare's friend Greg Smith ran a barbershop where Abraham used to sweep for a bit of extra coin. Greg Smith was trying to get a loan over $63,000 for his family home, but the bank was dicking him around. He sat there in the barbershop, papers strewn about, fretting about his situation, when Shakespeare offered to loan him the money he needed. "Throw those papers in the trash," he said. "I've got your back." He also bought his cousin a house. He paid for funerals. He lent people huge sums of cash. He gave his money away freely because it made him feel important, like he was a big man on campus. At first, he loved the attention, but he soon grew tired of the leeches surrounding him. He also realized he didn't know half of them. This reminds me of the story of MC Hammer, who also blew millions of dollars. He also helped a lot of friends out by, for example, employing 200 of them. But when he went bankrupt, they all disappeared. At one point, he would get 8 phone calls every 30 minutes, people asking him for money. He made statements to the press about how people use him. At one point, he left his mansion and stayed with barbershop Greg. He was a sad, broken man. In exasperated tones, he said to Greg, "I wish I never had money." He realized people didn't like him because of him, but for his wads of cash. This is when he found love, and his love found a sugar daddy. Abraham's cousin and him were at the bar when he introduced him to the enchanting 25-year-old Centauria butler. He wined and dined her. He took her places like New York just so they could have a nice New York dinner. He knocked her up with his second child. But friction began to appear. Centauria was getting annoyed by the revolving door of people siphoning money from this poor guy. He even got letters from jail inmates from all around the world asking for money, and he even had them as well. There were other issues. Abraham was a total ladies' man, and Centauria was getting tired of him stepping out, so they were on the rocks and basically uncoupling at this point. In October 2008, Shakespeare was down to his last few million. But as luck would have it, Doris Dee Moore, a glitzy, flashy 35-year-old, was introduced to him through a mutual friend called Barbara. She fashioned herself as a writer and offered to write a book about his rags to riches story. He was grateful. She seemed to be looking out for him. She was also financially secure, which meant that people around Abraham felt that she truly had his best interest at heart. She was somebody he could trust, or so they thought. Dee Dee was the president of American Medical Professionals, which is a company that contracts nurses' services when there are a shortage of nurses. She was divorced with a teen son named RJ. Dee Dee soon realized that Abraham was falling into financial ruin. With her business know-how, she offered to help him by talking to his debtors and handling what was left of his fortune. This is exactly what Abraham needed. Seeing as he was illiterate and didn't know a thing about finance, he needed someone to help take care of his finances and help him to hold on to what he has. as well as collecting the debts from the many people who owed him money. Dee Dee said she needed an office, so Abraham bought a home for $750,000, which she put in her business name. She also came up with a brilliant idea. To stop people from harassing him for money, he needed to put all his money into her business. They needed to create an investment company together. So together they incorporated a company. So all of his money went into her businesses. Dee Dee really wanted to control every aspect of Abraham's life. In fact, she never did start to write the book. Around this time, she even videotaped him, asking him about all the pressure of people asking for money. He said, "They won't stop." She asked him where he wanted to go to escape and suggested various parts of the world.
Do you get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe? Give me your opinion on it.
I've been tired. A year ago.
You're just ready to start living your life, huh?
They don't take no for an ounce or so.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
Well, are you gonna miss your home?
Yep, I miss it, but life goes on.
You're a toxic friend, and it's time to die. Or at least, time to walk away. I'm at the end of my humble pie. Crumbs are falling. Humiliate me again.
He was still the same old Abraham. He still bought discount clothes at Walmart, bought groceries at Superfoods, swept up at the barber shop. In fact, if he found a penny on the floor, he'd pick them up, telling Greg a bunch of those little pennies is what added up to his $17 million. Dee Dee bought herself a Hummer 2009 for 90 grand and a Corvette for her much younger boyfriend for 70 grand. She paid with a check from the American medical professionals, which of course meant Abraham was paying for it. But all of a sudden, people stopped seeing him at Walmart, Superfoods, or the barbershop. They didn't see him around town with his hot young babes. His friends and family couldn't reach him. He was known to take spontaneous trips, so it wasn't too surprising, but he didn't tell a soul. He was just gone. People called Dee Dee to inquire about Abraham's whereabouts. "Oh, he's keeping a low profile," she said. "He's tired of everyone asking him for money, so he's gone away." His friends would text him asking him to call them. As he was illiterate, he generally would just call back if someone slid into his DMs. But all of a sudden, he was texting back. "I'm with a girl, I'm traveling." He was not only texting, but using big words with many syllables. It was pretty suspicious, as if he suddenly became literate and sophisticated out of the blue. Also, when they texted him questions that only he could answer, there was no response. Santoria was baffled because when they were together, he would ask her to read texts. Yet, he was writing them like Shakespeare, the other Shakespeare. Dee Dee started telling people he went to Haiti and she hadn't heard from him since the earthquake. She told others he contracted AIDS and was seeking treatment. She told others he fell into a horrible drug habit. She had a different story for each person. She eventually started telling people he died of AIDS. Dee Dee paid Abraham's cousin, Cedric, $5,000 to deliver a letter, a $100 check, and a cross to his mom. In the letter, Abraham apparently reassured her that he's okay. Meanwhile, Dee Dee was going door to door collecting on Abraham's debts, like the good little business companion she was. That was kind of her to help Abraham with his finances while he was gallivanting all over God's green earth. 6 months of these shenanigans and Cedric had enough. He got on the horn and rang the Popo.
Cause you're a 730, and I know what I know, and I know I got a blow when I hear the Popo. Cause you're a 730, and I know what I know, and I know I got a blow when I hear the Popo. With the Popo. Cause you're a 730, and I know what I know, and I know I got a blow when I hear the Popo.
For house about half an hour, and then I started wondering, all that
Cause you're a 730, and I know what I know, and I know I got a blow when I hear the Popo.
Claimed he hadn't seen his cousin since April or so, and the only contact he had with him was from Dee Dee Moore. He told them about the letter. However, Cedric's story was also changing, and he didn't seem very cooperative. So, the cops dragged Dee Dee into the station. They asked about Cedric and the cut. They told her Cedric believes Abraham is dead, to which Dee Dee responded by saying that makes no sense because Abraham gave Cedric the card. When they questioned Cedric, he said Dee Dee gave him the card. Stories weren't matching up. Dee Dee also showed the cops Abraham's text, so clearly they were communicating. Guess this is a dead end, they thought. We must be barking up the wrong tree. Then they discovered Michael Ford. That greedy bastard had sued Abraham. He was swimming in motive, but Ford denied any involvement. And he also had an airtight alibi, as he was in Georgia at the time of Abraham's disappearance. The cops were running out of ideas, until one night they got a phone call from a distressed Centauria butler with a strange story. Dee Dee had phoned her and told her that she would buy her a house and a car if she lied to the cops, telling them that Abraham had popped by late at night, banging on the window, only to run away again. Alarm bells were ringing off the hook at this point. The fuss dragged Dee Dee in for questioning again. She was in tears, denying she did that. Eventually she cracked and admitted that she did it because she wanted the cops off her back. She was tired of suspicions. At this point, everyone and their dog were suspicious of Dee Dee. Now the cops knew something was off. They started tracing her calls and discovered that every time her and Abraham had been texting, they were pinning off the same cell phone tower. Their phones were right smack next to each other. When they asked Dee Dee about it, he gave her his phone. He wanted people off his back. She had an answer for everything. At this point, they put a tracking device on her Hummer. Dee Dee was suspect number 1. 2 days after Christmas, good-hearted Dee Dee took Abraham's poor, sad, lonely mother Elizabeth out for dinner at the Cracker Barrel. While there, she got a call from Abraham. Finally, her beloved son was reaching out. She passed the phone to his mom. He reassured her that everything was fine and not to worry. Dee Dee smiled reassuringly. She took the phone back and they resumed eating. The problem is, the phone call didn't sit well with his mother. It didn't sound like her son, who she knew like the back of her hand. So she called the detectives and reported the call. They traced it. Guess what? It wasn't good old honest Abe. In fact, it was his hair-snipping buddy Greg Smith, doing a pretty bad impersonation of him. So after that discovery, they tracked down Greg in a parking lot of a shopping mall, sitting with who else but Dee Dee Moore. Why do you think they were sitting together? Comment your comment in the comments. They pulled Greg into the station for questioning. He said, "Jesus, what did I get myself into?" He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He was thinking he was just helping Dee Dee out. Now that she ran Abraham's finances, she had told him that she would forget about the $63,000 he owed Abraham as long as he phoned his mother, pretending to be her son. It was an odd request, but it would be a huge load off his back if he wouldn't have to pay back the $63,000, so he agreed. But the detectives politely informed him that they suspected Dee Dee's involvement in Abraham's disappearance, and that would make him an accomplice. Greg was sweating bullets. This is not what he wanted. Why would Dee Dee stage a phone call with Elizabeth? Do you know? Comment your comment in the comments. The investigators were baffled. they decided to do a little bit more digging into Moore's background. Boy, did they discover a gold mine of fraud, theft and arson. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for part 2 and remember, be safe out there.